What is happening, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsy Jr. My name is JeffLightsy Jr. This is Victor Formation. This is kind of crazy. Desean Jackson will become the next head coach of Delaware State, a football program up in Delaware, Delaware, out of the MEAC conference. And thank you all for joining in. Shout out to Zach. What's going on, Zach? Yeah, I got tipped off, and I'm going to talk about it. Wow, that's really catching on. Kareem, thank you, Kareem. And that's what Prime was talking about. I don't know necessarily if this is what he was talking about, but the Desean was, I love the trend. It is amazing, the trend. And I'm going to tell you why this is such an important trend and why this hiring is major. We're going to read a couple of articles, one by Randall Barnes, shout out to Randall, and one via ESPN, which gave me pseudo credit on the story, but we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to tell you why this is significant, why this is major, and why Desean, I believe, will ultimately have a lot of success at Delaware State. So buckle up your seatbelts, tune in, hit that thumbs up button as we get, we'll talk more after the bumper. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. This is talking about Desean Jackson. So Desean Jackson will become the next head coach at Delaware State out of the MEAC conference, the DSU Hornets. This comes after a series of interviews, a campus tour, walking around the facilities and meeting with what took place, the good folks out at Delaware State. Now, how did this story come to me? So if you didn't see, kind of, shook up Twitter a little bit. As I kind of broke the story, this happened at 9:43 Eastern time. I put out this tweet because I got a text message at 8 a.m. Eastern time about Desean Jackson. It says, hearing Del State football has picked a head coach, and let's just say more NFL star power could be headed to the MEAC. So the reason why I put this tweet out the way I did at the time is because I didn't have a second source confirmed. How it kind of worked for me was, I was up. My son, he's 5 months, was up hanging out with him. He cries when he wakes up. He's a brat, right? At times. And so I get this message from a West Coast coach that I had, a West Coast coach from the Long Beach area. And he told me straight up, he said, Desean Jackson going to be the next head coach of Delaware State, and he wants some of my kids to come play for him. And I'm like, oh, what? Desean Jackson, Delaware State, like 3,000 miles over in Dover, Delaware. I've been to Delaware State's campus before. That's a long way from Southern California. But nonetheless, he was confident. He was like, yeah, that Desean Jackson, he's from Long Beach, where we're from. He's in Long Beach. He's offense coordinator at one of these at a high school in Long Beach right now. He's going to be the next head coach at Delaware State. He told me, yes, Long Beach Poly. Yes, I had a coach from, he doesn't coach at Long Beach Poly, but he's from the Long Beach Poly area. And I'm like, I gotta vet this, because that's a hell of a difference between Long Beach and Dover, Delaware. Right? Like, this is a long way from Southern California's Dover, Delaware, which is where Del State is located. So, I start hitting a couple of people up because I need to, before I put out the name, I need to get this vetted. I need to get this sourced. So, but I did put out this tweet though. I did. But this was, like I told you, I got hit up at 8 a.m. I put this out at 9:45 and said, hearing that they made their decision, but I didn't put any names because I needed to find out what was taking place. And so I hit up a couple of different people, and actually one of them hit me up, and it was Scotty from Offscript. Shout out to Offscript, man. My buddy Offscript hit me up. And it's like, this is what I'm hearing. I see your tweet. This is what I'm hearing. Delaware State is going to hire. This is a D2 guy. It was some D2 coach. And I'm like, nah, Scotty. This NFL guy ain't no D2 coach. Hell, this guy ain't even a college coach. This guy's a superstar, but he's not in the realm. And then I told him, I said, I'm hearing this Desean Jackson. I told him straight up. He's like, what? Desean Jackson? Almost like the same kind of reaction I had. Like, Desean Jackson, Delaware State? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it has no connections. What is going on there? Yeah, the math wasn't mathing. Like, it didn't make sense to me. And so he's like, well, let me ask some of my guys. Like, let me ask some of my coaching friends or some of the people that I know. Like, do they know anything about Desean Jackson going to Delaware State? Then he hit me back and was like, it's happening. You're right. Like, he's like, you're right. And I'm about to put it out. So you should run with it. And I was like, okay. So I put out my next tweet that I put out. It was like, got it confirmed. And then I end up talking to one more person and got it confirmed that Desean Jackson was going to be the next head coach at Delaware State. And I just simply put this tweet out, just got a second source. Former NFL Pro Bowler Desean Jackson will become the next head coach at Delaware State. And I gave proper credit where credit is due. Shout out to Scotty from Off Script with the help, because he helped me out there. And like we got a double sourced. And yeah, and it's kind of like taking off from there. Obviously, ESPN's picked it up, Bleacher Report's picked it up, some different and they had to give credit was due. Folks had to tag Scotty. Folks had to tag me about the story, because I just so happened that, and this is, I kind of want to make this about, and we're going to talk about Desean and what it means to Del State, because Delaware State is a program that's only won 2 games in the last 2 years. It's a bad football team. They have been a bad program for a very, very long time. And Desean Jackson is going to bring something to them that they just simply have never had in the history of their program. And that, quite frankly, in over 15 years, they haven't won the MEAC since 2007. And so Desean Jackson instantly is going to give them a jolt to life. And I can promise you, if I don't know nothing else, I know Desean Jackson's team is not going to only win 1 game next year. Nonetheless, when we put this out and it started getting picked up by everybody and their mama, ESPN, Bleacher Report, Sleeper Picks, Dove, Cloven, don't matter. They all picked it up because it's a big deal. And Pete Thamel, he is the newsbreaker. Like for ESPN, he had to kiss the ring a little bit. Pete Thamel had to say where he got it from. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, Pete Thamel, which I kind of enjoyed this. This was pretty cool for me. Pretty cool thing in my career, because I don't break news, right? Oh, I don't know what all that's about. But Pete Thamel, Desean Jackson, and Delaware State are finalizing an agreement for him to take the head coaching job there, per ESPN sources. He did an on-campus interview in recent days, and the sides are expected to come together in the near future. He goes on to say, per source, it has always been a dream of Jackson's to coach at an HBCU. Now, that is news to me. I didn't know. That wasn't told to me that it was a dream of his to coach at an HBCU. That dream could be a reality in the near future, first reported by yours truly. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let me go ahead and bookmark that. I'm going to show my grandkids or something one day. Like, hey, what I'm saying? But, and so now we're going to get into the actual job that is Deion Sanders. And if someone says, I'm interested on how he's going to build a staff. Here's the thing. Him building a staff is going to determine whether he's going to have success or not. His staff is going to be critical. Same with Michael Vick at Norfolk. And we're going to talk about that too. So the other thing that I got from that original message, let me read out. Deion Sanders said another one was going to drop when someone asked him about Michael Vick. Prime knew this was coming. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Maybe he did. I don't know. But that would make a lot of sense. But here was the other thing that was told to me in my original conversations from my connects out in Long Beach. They said Michael Vick wanted to hire Desean Jackson at Norfolk. Like, originally, that was going to be the plan. Desean Jackson, I believe, was originally going to be a part of Michael Vick's staff at Norfolk State. That changed, obviously, when Delaware State expressed interest in Desean Jackson being their head coach, and then Desean decided to go ahead and take that job. Now, as more stuff is starting to come out, and the story is starting to get bigger and bigger, and people are coming to me with information, apparently Desean Jackson's got a few guys he's already got on the hook, line, and sinker, both transfers and coaching staff. He's building his staff. He has to build a staff that is veteran-led, that knows the HBCU landscape, that knows college football landscape, and that can help him, because this is the first time he's building a program, and it's a collegiate program with nice facilities, but in an area of the country that some would consider hard to recruit to. Nonetheless, I know, this is from what I've been told so far, that I believe a former SWAC coach may end up being his offensive coordinator. I'm going to just leave it at that. A former SWAC coach will more than likely end up being his offensive coordinator, or former SWAC head coach. A former SWAC coach has already been, gotten a call from Deshaun's people as they're building the staff, and I believe they want him to be Deshaun's OC. Shout out to HBCU Pass. I appreciate you. Because this is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun when stories just fall in your lap. You don't have to do a whole lot of work for it. This story came from me networking and being good to people. I like I said, this coach, I've known this coach for years now. I've been in constant communication, just life stuff, life football stuff or whatever. And then he gets, he sends me probably one of the biggest stories in my career. I get to put it out there, and now I'm getting cited and sourced by everyone, every major platform in the country. And it's awesome. Like, that's awesome. Um, Someone saying it's Hugh. I don't know if it's Hugh. I wasn't given a name. Let me put it like that. I wasn't given a name, but I was told that it's a coach that's been in the SWAC, that's been a head coach in the SWAC before. I wasn't given a name, but I was told that that is what's going to happen with Desean Jackson. Let's say someone says this is a joke. This is making a mockery of HBCU football, no head coaching experience. No, this is not a joke. This is not making a mockery. This is the think about this. Delaware State fired their coach 2-3 weeks ago. Nobody has mentioned the Delaware State job for anything. Delaware State, the university, the school, the football program, everything has gotten more free publicity from this Desean Jackson hiring before he's ever coached a game, before his staff is being built, before anything than they've gotten the last 10 years. Think about this. Delaware State, this is a one-win football program. They won one game in 2024. They won one game in 2023. And they're the talk of the sports world. A team that won one game in 2024 is the talk of the sports world because they just did a bold move and hired Desean Jackson with no coaching experience. So, no, this is not making a mockery out of HBCU football. Was it a mockery when Prime went to Jackson State and won 2 SWAC championships and went to the Celebration Bowl twice? Was it a mockery that Eddie George, who was hired by Tennessee State, just won the OVC this year and made it to the FCS playoffs? Was it a mockery that Michael freaking Vick is now the head coach at Norfolk State University, a school that has not been good for a very, very long time, is now being led by a 757 legend in the 757? It's not a mockery. That is a blessing. So, no, this is not a mockery. This is absolutely insane. It is amazing to be able to see that this is what's going on. And I love it. If we're going to give others opportunities when they've never coached before, JJ Redick, Steve Nash, Steve Kerr. Now that's at the professional level, but if others are going to get an opportunity because they played to be head coaches, and that's at the professional level, I'll be damned if I'm not Jackson or Norfolk State or Delaware State not give Desean Jackson an opportunity, Jackson State not give Coach Prime an opportunity, Norfolk State not give Michael Vick an opportunity when the Lakers can give JJ Redick an opportunity. Desean Jackson was a better football player than JJ Redick was a basketball player. Michael Vick was a better football player than JJ Redick was a basketball player. And we know Deion was. Eddie George was just as good, if not a better football player than JJ Redick was a basketball player. So, no, this is not a mockery. If Delaware State wins 4 games, let's see. If Desean Jackson wins 4 games under him, that's a major improvement. Absolutely. It is. They won 2 games in 2023 and 2024 combined. 2 games in 2023 and 2024 combined. So, yes, Desean Jackson getting the job at Delaware State is amazing. Now, I want to take a look at the article put out by Randall Barnes. Shout out to Randall, young black journalist on the up and coming. He does work for Clutch Points, and he has his own thing, HBCU Pulse. So I want to give Randall a shout out because Randall gave me a shout out. He said, former NFL wide receiver Desean Jackson has reportedly finalized the deal to become the head coach at Delaware State University, according to a report by Jeff Lightsy. Said, quote, just got a second to, well, that's my tweet. Lightsy wrote on it. Scotty Vossgrip, who broke the Michael Vick news going to Norfolk State, and ESPN Pete Thamel corroborated. Desean Jackson and Delaware State are finalizing an agreement for him to take the lead as the head coach per ESPN sources. Did it on campus, blah, blah. Said Thamel added, per source, it has always been a dream of Jackson's to coach at an HBCU. That dream could be a reality in the near future. And that's awesome to hear because Desean Jackson's from Long Beach. He's from Cali. He's from Southern California. There's no HBCUs out there. Like, there's no HBCU football programs out there. And for him to have wanted to coach at an HBCU, I probably has something to do with Deion. But at the same time, that's awesome to see him have an opportunity to give back to an area of the country that, let's be honest, Desean Jackson, his pro football career is most known in Philadelphia. He's from Long Beach, but he's most known and most loved in that area, that Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Delaware area. So shout out to DJ. Jackson, 38, brings an electric football legacy to the conversation, a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time second-team All-Pro. He finished his playing career with 641 catches, 11,263 yards, and 58 touchdowns. Known for his dynamic playmaking ability, Jackson also amassed 4 rushing touchdowns, 4 punt return scores during a 15-year NFL career. Jackson retired as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, remember, Dover, Delaware, in close proximity to Pennsylvania, to Philly. That's big. On November 29th in 2023 by signing a one-day contract. It says most recently, Jackson served as an offensive coordinator at Woodrow Wilson High School, located in his hometown of Long Beach, California. The role marked the beginning of his post-NFL transition into coaching and allowed him to channel his expertise into developing young athletes. Jackson's emergence as a coaching candidate coincides with Delaware State's significant program overhaul. Of course, they fired Lee Hull and athletic director Alicia Shields-Gadsden at the end of the season, following the Hornets' 12th consecutive losing campaign. Okay, so this is critical too. They've had 12 straight losing seasons. 12 straight losing seasons. And hiring Desean Jackson is a bad idea. A team that's lost 12 has lost 12 straight losing seasons. And you're telling me hiring Desean Jackson is a bad idea? Like, give me a break. Like, knock it off. Cut it out. Stop it. Hiring this, you could do a lot other things that are a lot worse than hiring Desean Jackson after 12 straight losing seasons. I mean, you could do a whole lot worse than Desean Jackson. I'm just saying. Hey, shout out to Randall. I see Randall's in the building. Shout out to Randall for posting this article that I'm referencing right now. You a beast, dog. I gotta let you know you a beast. Just let you know. So let's continue on Randall's story. 12 straight losing seasons is crazy. I didn't know it was that bad until I read Randall's story. Whew, I mean, that is insane. The university hasn't claimed a MEAC title since 2007. The potential hire of Jackson may signal a new direction for the program, desperately seeking revitalization. Absolutely. The coaching discussion surrounding Jackson comes as Norfolk State University, another MEAC school, announced the hiring of Michael Vick as its next head coach. Like Delaware State, Norfolk State has faced several challenging seasons, making both hires headline-grabbing moves within the conference as schools look to rebuild their football programs. And here's the thing. Here's what the MEAC doesn't want to do. The MEAC, for a long time, the MEAC and the SWAC, they were competing entities, but they would go back and forth as far as who was the most relevant, who was the top dog or whatever. But now the SWAC is starting to run away with it. Not necessarily, the SWAC has won two of the last two Celebration Bowls, but not necessarily that. We're just talking about in sheer relevance. FAMU, a lot of the big dogs when it comes to HBCUs are in the SWAC. FAMU, Jackson State, Grambling. Like those are brands. Southern. Those are really, really massive brands. And FAMU was once a MEAC school that come over to the SWAC. Same with Bethune-Cookman. And so you're kind of losing some of your luster as far as popular name brands. You know what hiring Michael Vick and Desean Jackson to the conference does? It instantly makes you the two most relevant schools in HBCU sports. Whether that's fair or not, I mean, I don't know. But that's the truth. Michael Vick being at Norfolk State, he's a 757 legend. Being back in the 757 makes them the most entertaining HBCU on the planet. Desean Jackson being from Long Beach, taking a job in Dover, Delaware, but in an area where he's beloved because of his ties to the Eagles, because of his ties to the Redskins or Commanders, because of his time in the NFL, being the number one big play threat, maybe in the history of the NFL. He's got the most 50-yard touchdowns. So he's, if not the biggest big play threat, the number one, he's number 2 or 3. He ain't too many ahead of Desean Jackson. And most of those being done during his 6-7 years as as a top dog for the Eagles. That's saying a lot. And then what this also does, because I saw Hugh Jackson trying to do this when he was at Grambling, didn't really work out all the way. But I saw him trying to do this, and I believe Desean will also try to do the same. It brings California into the HBCU space in a grander scale. See, when Hugh Jackson was at Grambling, he plucked a lot of kids out of California, Southern California to be exact, to come to Grambling. California, as we know, biggest state in the U.S., but has a ton of talent, and a ton of kids who aren't privy to the HBCU landscape because there's no HBCU presence as a school. Now, obviously, there's a ton of HBCU alums that live in California, most notably Los Angeles, but there's not a major HBCU presence because there's no HBCUs in California. Well, now bringing Desean Jackson to the HBCU space, you now involve California more heavily into this HBCU space. And think about this as well. Because of this disgusting transfer portal, I'm going to call it disgusting. I'm going to call it what it is. It is nasty right now in this transfer portal streets. You got JUCOs that won't count. You got years in JUCO that won't count against you. You got guys that can hit the portal 5 times in 5 years. You got all of, I mean, the transfer portal was so nasty right now that high school kids are getting left in the dump. Good high school kids, amazing, highly talented high school kids are now left in the dumps because JUCOs don't even count against you anymore because they can't find anywhere to go play. And now with Desean, his pitch to a kid out of the Philly area, to a kid from California, come play. I almost said come play at LBC. Come play at Delaware State under me and whatever this staff, because you know he's going to put together a hell of a staff, and whatever this staff looks like, you will have an opportunity to play. Yeah, maybe it's at the FCS level. Maybe you feel like you're better than FCS talent, but you come prove yourself for a year or two, and then you can move on. Hell, I'm sure Desean Jackson is like, I will help you move on. Now, that sounds crazy. You're like, Jeff, that's awful. Why would you put her a school and make it a glorified JUCO? Because that's the way you have to talk. It's business transactions. Colleges are not the way they used to be. It's not. Because of the transfer portal, because of NIL, you have to get creative when you're at smaller schools. As someone who is a graduate of a smaller school, I went to WKU. I just watched. We made the Conference USA Championship game, and I watched all of our starters hit the portal. I watched it. Some of them even played in the bowl game, but all of our starters automatically hit the portal. Some of them went to Auburn, some went to Louisville, a couple went to FAU, but they all hit the portal because that is what's happening in college sports. If your starter is good and your starter is making noise at a smaller school and you're a dog, there is going to be opportunities both financially, playing time, the scene, at the opportunity at the bigger level, whatever. There's going to be opportunities galore if you're playing at a small school at a bigger school, if you're able to make things work. And that is selling points for coaches now. Come here, give me 2 years of your life, right? Whether you're out of high school, out of the portal, whatever, give me 2 years of your life. Let me help you change your life. And then you can move on if you see best fit. Or you can come here and stay here and help us build something. Watch us become champions. Watch us become MEAC champions. Help us become MEAC champions, Celebration Bowl champions, etc., etc. Because the days of having guys that are in one place 4 to 5 years, those are over. Even at the big dog level, even at the Power 4 level, that's not happening. So do you think that's going to be happening at the MEAC or the SWAC or the FCS level? No, it's not. Because if these guys go and dominate, then they're going to get an opportunity to go somewhere else and play and get paid to play, which is something that that's something that the smaller schools, they just can't afford. They just can't afford to. Let me read some of your comments, but they can't afford to do it. Let's see. Vic said the same thing, 1 to 2 years of player development and go to the pros or Power 5 to get a bag. And how can you be mad at somebody for saying that? Because Vic is smart. He gets it. He gets it because you would be lying to yourself if you think you're going to be able to go recruit a kid out of high school or recruit a kid out of the portal and think he's going to give you 4 years. That's just not the way things are working right now. You think a kid's going to give you 4 years, I got another thing coming, because another school with a bigger bag than yours, with potential more opportunities than yours, is going to come and give them something that you just simply can't offer. Jeff, what's going to be left for the non-celebrity coach? Everything's going to be left. Everything's going to be left. What do you mean? Desean Jackson's got to hire an offense coordinator. He's got to hire a defense coordinator. He's got to hire a D-line coach, a secondary coach, whether it's safeties, corners. He's got to hire a strength and conditioning coach. Those all sound like they're going to possibly, more than likely, be non-celebrity coaches. Those are more likely going to be non-celebrity coaches. And so, therefore, you're building a staff around you that are going to get more opportunities or maybe get an offense coordinator job that he might not have gotten if you weren't the head coach, Desean Jackson. Maybe get a defense coordinator job that he might not have gotten if you weren't the head coach, Desean Jackson. Maybe get a secondary coach or a safeties coach or D-line coach or a strength and conditioning coach that he may not have gotten if Desean Jackson wasn't the head coach. So, yeah, there's going to be plenty of opportunities. Yeah, it may, someone who is grinding in the coaching profession may feel like, damn, just because I didn't play X amount of years in the NFL, I had to grind for 10, 12, 15 years as a coach, from grad assistant to analyst to whatever, position coach to coordinator, then to head coach. But then sometimes guys can put in 15 years in the league and 3 Pro Bowls, and they can get an opportunity like Del State. Because right now we have over 400 people in this chat watching, commenting, and leave your comments. Hit that thumbs up button, by the way. Commenting because Desean Jackson is the head coach. When Lee Hall got hired, people weren't doing live streams. They weren't doing. Lee Hall was the head coach of Jackson. At Delaware State. Lee Hall was. Most of y'all can't tell me who Lee Hall is. He won 2 games in 2 years. He won 1 game in 2023, 1 game in 2024. Del State had to fire him after 2 years. And it's like, man, what we were doing wasn't working. So let's try doing something else. Let's try getting our program some relevance by bringing in a guy like Desean Jackson. Let's see. Comment. Hit that thumbs up button, by the way. Name one Power 4 school that has ever hired a coach without coaching pedigree. The aim of these ex-NFL players to follow Deion's footprints and get a better job at all lower tier P4 schools. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But I see it at the professional level. It's basketball. But I saw JJ Redick. He didn't have any coaching experience. Steve Kerr didn't have any coaching experience. Greg Popovich didn't have any coaching experience. That's going way back. So, I mean, if they can do it at the NBA level and at the highest level, just because they played, let me take a chance on a guy that played at the highest level, at the NFL level, at my smaller HBCU. Deion didn't have any coaching experience. You see how that worked? Hell, he just coached the Heisman Trophy winner, and another kid is probably going to be the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Seemed to work for him. Eddie George was in movies, in stage plays, and doing accounting. He gets hired as the head coach at Tennessee State University, and they just won the OVC. They just won the OVC and was in the FCS playoffs this year. I think they won 11 games this year. It seemed to work out pretty good. So now I can try to duplicate that with Michael Vick and Desean Jackson. Why wouldn't I try? Trent Dilfer, absolutely. He came out the broadcast booth. Now, Trent Dilfer was coaching, not to get back. Trent Dilfer was coaching at a high school in Nashville, though. Trent Dilfer was a head coach at a high school in Nashville, and then he got the UAB job from there. But, I'm watching. That's the thing. Y'all keep saying these celebrity coaches. I'm watching it work. I'm watching Tennessee State go to the FCS playoffs and win their Ohio Valley Conference. Tennessee State's not in the MEAC or the SWAC. They're in the Ohio Valley, and they won the freaking conference this year. I watched it. They're in the FCS playoffs. I watched what Prime did at Jackson State. And so, therefore, I'm going to watch and expect success from Vic at Norfolk State and Desean Jackson at Delaware State. Broadway to the playoff is crazy. It is. And it happened. He did it. He did it. Like Eddie George was in stage plays and in movies before he took the head coaching job at Tennessee State. He said, I never intended on coaching. Dr. Glenda Glover at Tennessee State, because he's in some kind of finance department. He handles her finances for the university and for her personal. And she was like, yo, Eddie, you're doing all this finance and all this acting and all this cool, but man, you football. We got to open in at Tennessee State right now. You ain't got to move. And he said, you know what? Let me give it a try. And he just won the OVC. Let me read some more. Of your comments. Said Deion did have coaching experience. It may not have been in college, but he did coach. Yeah, he was an offensive coordinator at his son's high school. That's not a lot of coaching experience, but he did have it. You're right. He did have it. Who's JSU going to get? I'm not going to get anybody. They got Coach TC Taylor, Celebration Bowl champion, baby. 2024 Celebration Bowl champion. 2024 SWAC champion. 2024 Celebration Bowl champion. Holla at Coach TC. They ain't getting nobody. They got the guy. Shout out to TC Taylor. JSU's the standard. They're Celebration Bowl champs. You know what I'm saying? That ATV Trent Dilfer coached the high school before UAB. Yes. JSU's not the Stanford. Grambling would have been SWAC West with Hugh. Yeah, I thought they fired Hugh too fast. Hugh didn't have a spectacular start, but I thought they fired him too fast. He had connections out in California. He had a plan. He had awesome players. Floyd Chalk and a couple of those other guys were tough under Hugh Jackson. Hell, Miles Crawley. Miles Crawley came to Grambling to play for Hugh Jackson. Julian Calvez was a heck of a player under Hugh Jackson. And they thought he wasn't moving fast enough. I don't know. I thought it was a bad firing of Grambling when they let Hugh go that fast. And, this year it was no better. This year was no better. Jeff Saturday got to coach the coach, no coaching experience. Absolutely. Straight off the ESPN anchor desk, he went in to be the interim coach of the Indianapolis Colts. So, like, when people get mad at players like Desean Jackson and players like Ed Reed, potentially, he screwed that up, but he had a chance at Bethune-Cookman, and he kind of butchered it. But I imagine he would have been awesome. I know Ed Reed would have been awesome. If he would have got that Bethune-Cookman, put it like this. Bethune-Cookman, the guy that they went with instead of Ed Reed, Raymond Woody Jr., has not been good in 2 years. He just hasn't. He's had bad seasons back-to-back years. If Raymond Woody Jr. wins 3 or less games again for the third straight season, I spend a block on Ed Reed. I would. What more do you have to lose? Especially if Michael Vick and Desean Jackson go up to the MEAC and start killing it at two programs that are dumpster dive. I mean, let me not be disrespectful, but Norfolk. We just read Randall's article. Delaware State's had 12 consecutive losing seasons. That means kids that are going to college right now, 18, 19-year-olds, were 6 and 7 years old when Delaware State had their last winning season. Think about that. Kids that are going to college in the fall of 25 were 6 and 7 years old when Delaware State had their last winning season. That's how bad they've been. They've had 12 consecutive losing seasons. Norfolk has been a dumpster of the MEAC for a long time. And if those two guys go to those two programs and turn it up, I'd spin a block if I was Bethune. If Raymond Woody doesn't work at Bethune, I'd spin a block on Ed Reed. I would. I would. I'm just being honest. I would. Let me read some more of your comments. It says, when Deion came to JSU was 4-8. They didn't believe that they could get great players. Deion showed them how it's done. TT Taylor took it to the next level. Absolutely, because TC won the Celebration Bowl. Deion wasn't able to win. It says, wow. Ever since Deion Sanders made it cool for these Power 5 or 4 coaches at HBCUs, when none of these guys haven't or wouldn't come to HBCU games, if you gave them a ticket, now it's cool. If that's the way you want to look at it. That's the thing. I'm not here to tell you how to look at these things. I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at it as an opportunity to have Desean Jackson on my sidelines as my head coach, or to have Michael Vick on my sideline as my head coach, or at one point potentially to have Ed Reed on my sideline as my head coach. Because no matter how long they're there, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, for that period of time, it's going to be some amazing things that are happening on your campus with your football program. This makes sense for Del State and Norfolk State would be interested at Howard or FAMU. So with Howard, they've had some success under Larry Scott. I don't see them making any changes. FAMU only won 7 games this year, but it was like a lot. It was real noisy. They didn't have a ton of losses, but it was real noisy and it was real ugly because they had so much success under Willie Simmons the previous years that a 7-4 season was just super disappointing. But it'd be interesting to see. I'm not firing anybody off, but I think FAMU and Howard are going to have their coaches for the foreseeable future. But it is something to think about. It says JSU had a great run under Coach Cameron. Yeah. It says, shouldn't the goal be to bring HBCUs into glory without needing players to consider P4 schools and create NFL pipeline? These ex-players are using HBCUs to get P4 jobs. Once again, how do I put this? I'm not saying that you're wrong. The problem is it's not the fact that they can move on or whatever. The collegiate athletics is messed up right now. And so I say that to say, if you have a great season with great players at the FCS level, it's not just at the FCS level. It can even be at the FBS level. At the bigger schools are going to come buy your players off your roster. Once I'm a graduate of Western Kentucky University, our players got poached from our roster. We had one guy going, Darius Thomas, going to Louisville, linebacker. Our best linebacker is going to Louisville. Our best defensive lineman is going to Auburn. Our quarterback is going to FAU. Quarterback and wide receiver going to FAU. Other players, one guy's going to Kentucky. Our center's going to Kentucky. Like, that's what college athletics has created. The NCAA has allowed with the way the portal works and with the way NIL works. So when I say this is not to disparage Norfolk State or disparage Delaware State. Yes, I would love to have NFL players come from those schools. Just the problem is it's harder now. It's a lot harder, but not just from those schools. It's harder from everywhere. It just is. But someone says, stop it, Jeff. You can't spin the block if you're Bethune. Now, you got to spin the block. If it doesn't work out with Raymond Woody, You got to spin the block. And you got to kiss the feet, kiss the ring. Because I think Ed Reed was going to turn up at Bethune. I guess we'll never know. But I think Ed Reed was about to turn Bethune-Cookman all the way up. With the resources he had in the state of Florida, being in Daytona Beach, he had Edgerrin James, Pro Football Hall of Famer, on campus with him. They were buying property in the area. I think he was about to turn them boys up. That's just me. But as a fellow journalist, I'm happy for you. I appreciate you, Tyler. I appreciate you, buddy. You see, Bill Belichick, the greatest NFL coach, said Ed Reed is one of the smartest defensive players he's ever had, and that Ed Reed was a coach on the defense. Absolutely. Yeah, no, Bill Belichick, he gushes more at Lawrence Taylor and Ed Reed than he does at Tom Brady. That's just a fact. I mean, he gushes more at them than he does at Tom Brady. I do wish Desean well at Delaware State. I think Desean's going to do well because that's the thing. Desean Jackson became a superstar in high school and at the University of Cal in California, and he's known on the West Coast. He's a big West Coast guy. But he became a superstar at the pro level in the Northeast, in Philly. Then he took that show on the road and went to Washington. And then he extended his career. He went back West Coast. He extended that career with the Raiders and the Rams. But the bones of his prime of his NFL career happened in the Northeast, in the Pennsylvania area, in the Delaware area, in Philly. Because Philly from Dover is like 2 hours, like hour and a half. So a lot of the Delaware Valley is what they call that. A lot of them are Eagles fans. It's a ton of Eagles fans. As someone who spent a little bit of time in Dover, actually. Shout out to my lady, Brianna, and her family. A little bit of time in Dover. There's a ton of Eagles fans. Hell, I bought an Eagles shirt in Dover because there's a lot of Birds fans in the area. And they're going to come out and support Desean Jackson because he is a fan favorite out that way. He's a fan favorite. Let's see. If I am Michael Vick or Desean Jackson, I would hire Ed Reed as a DB coach. I don't think Ed Reed's interested in being a position coach. I believe Ed Reed wants to be a head coach, I believe, in the state of Florida. That's just from and I've had conversations with Ed. I believe that Ed Reed wants to be a head coach in the state of Florida. So that's why Bethune-Cookman was so intriguing to him, and that's why he wanted the opportunity. He just kind of jumped the gun a little bit when it comes to bashing him on social media via Instagram Live and all that stuff. He should have held off on that. That's it. Sounds like hate and no facts. Just name white people with no coaching experience, and you are stuck on black people. Sad. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, you would go under 500 next year. Stop it. Stop it. Bethune, please apologize. I'm telling y'all, man, and this is no disparaging on it on Raymond Woody Jr. I think you have more than 6 wins in 2 years if your head coach was Ed Reed. That's just me. Bethune apologize. That's funny. And see, I love all these former NFL players becoming coaches. I absolutely love it. Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And they're high. And that's the thing. Even if it's for a short period of time, right? Even if these guys have massive success and then move on to other opportunities, you can never mention that coach. Like, you will never be able to mention Michael Vick as long as he's a head coach without mentioning Norfolk State University. You will never be able to mention Desean Jackson as long as he's a head coach, as long as he's a football coach, without mentioning potentially now Delaware State University. You will never be able to mention Deion Sanders as a head coach without mentioning Jackson State University. And to me, that is valuable. Like, that has value. That has value. Like, everywhere they go, Travis Hunter will always be associated with Jackson State. Shedeur Sanders will always be associated with Jackson State. Deion Sanders, as a football coach, will always be associated with Jackson State. You can't, the story's incomplete if you leave that part out. And that is something that I do like. Capitalize on the publicity. If they leave in a few years, so what? Absolutely. So what? If they left it better than when they came, as long as they're not kicking dirt on you on the way out the door, so what? Take advantage of the opportunity, as Lawrence said. Take advantage of the opportunity. Because I can tell you this, MEAC Media Days in July of 2025 is actually in Norfolk. They do their media days every single year in Norfolk. And I can tell you, it will be the most packed media day the MEAC has ever seen. They will have to fill out more credentials than they've ever had to fill out in the history of their media day because they will have Michael Vick and Desean Jackson there. More credentials will need to be filled out because they will have Michael Vick and Desean Jackson there. I see Ed Reed has interviewed with Alabama A&M and might get the job. Is that true? Has that been confirmed? I haven't heard that. That's not to say it ain't true. I just haven't heard that. That would be awesome. Ed Reed will be the DC for Norfolk State University. Is that true? I don't see Ed Reed doing anything but being a head coach, but I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? Desean Jackson's QB1 must be on the plane with him. What makes you say that? That'll be interesting. But I do know they're putting in work. Desean Jackson is putting in work right now, building his staff, building his roster. He's making calls for his roster already. He's making calls all the way from Dover, Delaware, all the way to Long Beach in California, in Southern California. All the coaches in the area know Desean Jackson is. All the coaches in South Central LA and in the surrounding areas, both Los Angeles and all throughout the state of California, know who Desean Jackson is. It's not like he's a secret. It's not like he's someone you can keep on the wraps. He's making calls. He's putting together his staff. He's trying to build a roster. He may have 2 silent commits already. Like, I don't know. It's just what I'm hearing. He may have 2 silent commits already. And the man just got hired as the head coach. So that is just, if Ed Reed, I don't see. Now, I pulled this comment up earlier. I'm not saying they didn't interview for that. I just remember the conversations that I've had with Ed. Ed wants to be a coach in the state of Florida. His children are still young. He wants to be near his children. He doesn't want to be somewhere that's going to take too much time away from his children, which are in the state of Florida. So Bethune made perfect sense because he'd be at Daytona Beach. He'd still be in Florida. His kids will still be around. Alabama A&M being in Huntsville, Alabama, while his young kids are in Florida, I don't really see that happening. I don't really see that happening. Let's see. For all the people that don't have a clue of JSU before Prime, JSU has a winning history, but was going through a down area. Prime got us out of that slump, but Coach TC has us on top. He got the big W. Yes, he did. He won the Celebration Bowl. Bethune-Cookman, 2-10. You can't tell me Ed Reed can't get them to 5-7 or 6-6. He'd be better than that. 2-10. You wouldn't be at 5-7 or 6-6. You'd be at 9-3. You'd be at 10-2. You'd be really, really good if Ed Reed was your head coach. I'm just saying. So this guy wants Deion Sanders and his kids to be associated with JSU. You're the same guy who said they banned from coming to the homecoming. That's simply not true. How can I ban somebody from someplace that I'm not from? I'm not from Jackson. I don't live in Jackson. How can I ban somebody from Jackson or from a homecoming when I don't go to the homecoming? I'm not from there. So that's how I know you're making stuff up. Let's see. I've heard Huntsville, so I'm all in for. I've heard that. I live in Huntsville, so I'm all for Alabama A&M. It'd be nice though. It'd be really, really nice. It'd be a win-win for both. Absolutely. Let's see. I'll be watching Vic just like I watched Deion at JSU. Absolutely. And Vic's gonna have success. And here's the thing: the proof's already in the pudding. If you don't think these guys are gonna come in and have success, I'm not saying they're going to come and win the conference in year 1. I'm not going to say that. And because the MEAC system is so flawed, they only play 5 conference games. So they have to schedule 7 non-conference games. They have to schedule 7 non-conference games, which is crazy. It's way more than most FCS schools. They could even have a quote unquote bad record or not the best record in year 1. And that doesn't mean that I don't think they'll have massive success. These guys will have, both Desean and Vic will have massive success at their stops. And, depending on how great the success is and how bad they want to move up and do something else, or if that's even a desire of these guys, then we'll see what happens. But I believe Michael Vick will have massive success at Norfolk State. I believe Desean Jackson will have massive success at Delaware State. That's not I don't even think that's saying a lot. I think they will come in and be 2 of the best coaches and have 2 of the best teams in the MEAC immediately. That includes South Carolina State with Chennis Berry in year 1, took the Bulldogs to the Celebration Bowl. That includes Trey Oliver, who's won a Celebration Bowl. That includes, some of my guy, Larry Scott up at Howard, who's been to a Celebration Bowl. So I think these guys will come in and be great. I would think these guys will be great. He said Bethune wasn't ready to turn into a secular school. The president literally said the music played was not good when he walked into to practice. That's true. That's true. The music was a talking point. I remember the music was a thing, and that was interesting. That was an interesting comment to to say one of the reasons why you felt uncomfortable making the hire of Ed Reed was some of the music that was being played out of the locker rooms. That is true. That was something that was said, and it was weird. It was a little bit strange. Let me see. The number one requirement in college football is recruiting, and these guys will recruit. I think recruit well. They can have X's and O's coaches around them. That's exactly what they're going to do. These guys, both Vic and Desean Jackson, are coming in to set the foundation. They're coming in to say, hey, we played in the league a combined 30 years, I think, between the two of them. I think Vic did 13, Desean did 15. So you're talking about 28 years of NFL experience at the highest level. And these guys were all pro and pro bowlers. Like, these guys weren't like soup sandwiches. These guys had 1,000-yard receiving years and all pro quarterback years and Pro Bowl years and all these things. So these guys not only played at the highest level, they played at the peak. They were all pro. They were all stars at the highest level. And they're coming in to lay a foundation, set a culture. And let's be honest, they're on the phone with Deion. Both of them. I think Vic already admitted he's talking to Deion. I'm sure Desean Jackson has done the same. They're on the phone with Deion. They're learning how to build a staff. They're learning how this works. They're learning the ins and outs of coaching at an HBCU when you don't have the same resources that Vic had at Virginia Tech or that Desean Jackson had at Cal Poly, had at University of Cal Berkeley, rather. Like, you're learning these things. You're understanding. You're talking to these people. You're talking to the coaches. You're understanding the type of talent that you can acquire. And then you go out there and acquire that talent. And then from there, you hire a staff around you of coaches that have coached at the collegiate level for a long time, of coaches that are getting their first shot to coach at the collegiate level for the first time, both young and old. You mix it all together, you lay your foundation, you go out to get the best players that you can acquire, and you go out there and you kick it off. And you play that type of brand of football, the style of ball that you feel like your favorite team should be playing. If you're Desean Jackson and you're mad at the Eagles or you're mad at Cal, Long Beach Poly at high school and say, man, they need to be playing like this, then guess what? You get the chance to implement that at Delaware State now. You get the chance to do all the things from the couch potato that you've been saying that they should be doing. Now you get an opportunity to do that. Now you get an opportunity to show that off. It says the HBCU drafts are up and Deion's daughter put the lights on Colorado B-ball. Yeah, more guys are getting into the league from HBCUs. So on that, Christian HBCU should be inviting rap artists, not secular art, Christian rap artists, not secular artists. That would be interesting. That would be interesting to see how that will work. I'm not against it at all. Do you think TC will leave JSU for a Power 5 job if they came calling? I don't know. TC is a Mississippi native. Tennessee is a Jackson State alum. He's a Mississippi native. That's not this. It just depends on what his aspirations in coaching are. If he wants to coach at the FBS level, and if someone comes calling and that's his aspiration, then he will. But if he is content with being the head football coach at Jackson State, his alma mater, and making them national champions and continuing to preserve their relevance and etching out his name in history, he already did that. He won a Celebration Bowl for the first time ever. Then he may be content with just doing that right there where he's from. So it just depends on. I don't know what his wants and needs are. Depends on what those are. Deion said he is setting up black coaches to call to help the new black coaches like Vic and others avoid his mistakes. And I'm sure they're calling him. I'm sure they're taking him up on that offer. I can guarantee you that all these guys have relationships with Deion. So I'm sure they've called him and they've reached out and they want to see what the do's and don'ts are. So glad Coach Prime didn't give up when people said he would fail at JSU in Colorado. Now, he's been awesome. Like I said, 2-time SWAC champion, undefeated SWAC record the last 2 years. And he just fell short in the Celebration Bowl. Said the elephant in the room is what kind of budget would these schools give for hiring assistants? Now, that, Theodore, is key. Because the thing is, you can be as big as you want to be, but to compete, like you said, you have to be able to acquire talent and you have to be able to coach up the talent. Because there's teams, very, very highly talented teams, that end up losing because they can't coach up the talent. How good are your coaches? How good will your coaches be? And what kind of coaches will you be able to lure, to attract to Del State if you're Desean Jackson with you? Who do you have on your staff that wants to come to Del State to help you build up a program that's had 12 consecutive losing seasons? Once again, 12 consecutive losing seasons is no small feat. That is no small feat. That means you have been bad for a very, very long time. What coaches want to take a chance on you being a first-time head coach and being a part of a program that's not used to winning? That's going to be awesome. Go to Sean. Teach your wide receivers and tight ends to score running backwards. Yeah, just make sure they hold on to the ball. Make sure they run with the ball through the goal line. So yeah, I'm excited for Desean Jackson. He will be the next head coach at Delaware State. And this was a pretty cool story. Shout out to that coach out in Long Beach to help me out. To help me out, that kind of tipped me off to this story that came out, and it's been picked up all around the world. Bleacher Report, ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, everybody's picked up the story, and it has Delaware State getting more publicity than they've gotten in at least the last 20 years combined as a football program. A football program that's had 12 consecutive losing seasons is the talk of college football right now, and it's all because of Desean Jackson. And those are the type of things that you can't buy that type of publicity. You can't. And it's been awesome to see, and I can't wait to see the contract details and how he's able to build up this coaching staff and therefore this roster for Delaware State. Let me read some more of your comments and I'm getting out of here. Let's see. Someone said he says Guthrie and Savion Wilkerson doesn't transfer to JSU if Desean Jackson was coaching there. You're probably right. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, maybe they do. I guess we'll never know. You know, Isaias, shout out to Isaias. He just won his Celebration Bowl. He was a part of the Celebration Bowl team at JSU. But maybe they don't. Maybe they do stay at Delaware State if Desean Jackson is the head coach and they're not having 12 consecutive losing seasons. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Desean Jackson is the new head coach of Delaware State. Hit that thumbs up button before you get out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time.